Our next panel is going to be about empowering youth to actively participate in building Pacific community resilience. I would like to welcome the moderator, Siosina Mele Louis, Climate Traditional Knowledge Officer from SPRAP. And please introduce your panel. Thank you. Welcome on stage.
Talaflava, everyone, and warm greetings from the Pacific. It is my honor and pleasure to be here to share and highlight some of the work that we are implementing in the Pacific. And may also take this opportunity to call on my fellow panelists from the Pacific, if I can have Ofa Fanunu, Director of the Tonga Meteorological Services, if you can take a seat, as well as Salisa Nime, our Pacific Met Desk Coordinator, and the beautiful Director for the Climate Change Resilience Program, based or situated at the Secretariat Pacific Regional Environment Program. Today we're celebrating youth. Unfortunately, on our way here, we kind of lost our youth. Thank you very much. We have some other competing events happening at the COP, but hopefully we can do justice by sharing some of the work that we are implementing in the Pacific. And without further ado, so how this session will go about, we'll start with the introductions before we go into a presentation to showcase some of the work, and then maybe open up if you have any questions. We can have this as an interactive panel so that we can get the most out of this. So without further ado, we'll start with Tangaloa on my left side. Over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Fafitai Sina. Do you know, I sat up here and waved at you all. Nobody waved back at me. So in the Pacific, it's kind of embarrassing if nobody waves back at you. So, hi everyone. We're really, really happy to be here. My name is Tangaloa, and I work with an amazing, not just an amazing team in the climate change program at the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, but also work with all of our dynamic leaders in our country, such as Ofa here, Director of Met from Tonga. He'll introduce himself. But it's a privilege for us to be here, and to be honest, it's just quite nice to be away from the COP space and to be in a space where you can think and be, you know, not be confined to paragraphs and full stops, but to think outside the box. So I come from one of the smallest islands in the Pacific, with a very small population. So I'm really, really happy to be here and hope to meet all of you before we leave here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Salesa. I come from a small country as well in the Pacific. Not so many people have heard of it. In fact, I showed the name and the guy at the front misspelled it. The country is called Vanuatu. It's just east of Australia. My work in the region is particularly coordinating the activities around meteorology. We have a very, very big region, and we want to work together as a unit to address a lot of other issues that affect our countries.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ofa Fanunu, Director of the Tonga Meteorological Services. Those of you who do not know where Tonga is close neighbors with Fiji, the last remaining kingdom in the South Pacific, 100,000 population and 170 islands. So being the Director of Meteorology, our challenge is getting the messages out to the communities in terms of early warnings from natural hazards. That's our main mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ofa. May I kindly ask our colleagues if we can put on screen. So what we have here is a slideshow, and I'm going to pass the mic and this button to Salis, and he'll speak to some of the events that's been, and some of the work that's been happening in the Pacific, and perhaps if you can highlight as well where in this is the traditional knowledge component and also the role of the youth in some of these work done in Vanuatu.
Thank you, Siosina. Often when we talk about traditional knowledge in a very modern environment, it is seen as something of the past. Whereas in a lot of our island countries, being very isolated, traditional knowledge is still very relevant. And when we talk about science, we often forget that a lot of our ancestors have lived through a lot of the extreme events, and they have a lot of the explanations in their own languages. When you communicate science in a modern context, often it is lost. And a lot of people don't understand because the context in which we communicate the science is not relevant to them. And so a lot of the work that's been done in Vanuatu to try and collect traditional knowledge to be a bridge to help communities better understand the science that scientists and people from the Weather Service are trying to communicate. And one such event or one such activity that we promote in the region, or particularly in Vanuatu, is by the introduction of an app. We have a database that collects all the traditional knowledge on weather and climate, and we develop an app that allows youth to be involved in the collection of traditional knowledge, allow for them to talk to the elders, understand a lot of the science around them. When a hurricane is coming towards them, what are usually some of the signs that the elders would look to tell them, what the type of extreme events that are coming, or even during a drought, or what are some of the activities that they would do in a traditional context. So there've been a lot of activities done with through one of the projects funded by the Clean Climate Fund. We've been able to take this to a lot of the community centers that were established in a lot of the provinces around the country, and allowed the youth to participate and be part of this collection and be part of this citizen science. And so one of the other very innovative ways to try and engage youth and especially farmers, because in a context from a small island, everyone is a fisherman, everyone is a farmer, and everyone. So it is very important to know that youth are also farmers. And so in that context, how do we make meaningful science meaningful for everyone? We've developed with scientists a new app that allows for farmers to be able to see the weather and be able to plan the type of crops that they need to plant, or specific time for harvest through this Acromet bulletin that allows for farmers to access information. So there've been a lot of work that's done throughout the country to try and promote this science, promote information from the Weather Service, to allow for farmers to utilize, and not only utilize, but allow for them to use this alongside with the traditional knowledge, the knowledge that they have from a lot of the village or community contexts. And this is an example of engaging youth, women, elders in the community to understand, be able to participate more and utilizing information that's coming out from the Met Service.
Thank you, Salisa, for sharing those examples. These are only a few. There's a whole lot more, and we will hear from OFA with regards to similar work that's happening in Tonga as well, looking at building climate resilience through the early warning lens.
Thank you, Sina. Some of the work that, like I mentioned before, in terms of, because we have so many islands and that challenge to relay the information. What we are piloting at the moment is using the social media. We've established Facebook pages on weather and climate for every community, and that's led by the town or the village officer. Because the young people know more about these gadgets, the technology, we've attached a couple of the young youth to the town officer to help him manage the weather and climate page for that village. So this group, we call them authorized officers, authorized weather officers, work together with the Met office to put out the information for these villages. This is still in pilot mode, but it looks very promising for us. Many of you may have remembered January of last year. We had a major volcanic eruption in Tonga that sent shockwaves around the world. And I want to talk about the traditional knowledge side of things, because in the Pacific, like what Salisa said, it's still very strong, the use of traditional knowledge. So modern instruments could not predict that we are going to have this massive eruption. But one day before the eruption, 70 kilometers away, our main island, we could smell sulfur when we came to the main CBD. Nobody knew that these were signs of a massive eruption that was going to happen. Until we finished, the event finished, some 3-4 months later, we started going to talkback radio, and we got the feedback from some of our people that live on volcanoes. And they were sharing the information with us. You should have been prepared. This is what was going to happen. So the information we provide in terms of the weather, very contemporary, but how we connect with the communities now, we're trying to go into the schools, we're trying to collect traditional knowledge and try to make that connection through this Facebook pages I was talking about, but also working with the World Meteorological Organization now, developing a mobile app that will look into capturing some of this information and having an interaction between the communities and the Met Service. They are able to report to us when traditional knowledge appears or traditional indicators appears, that so we can have the discussion and make that connection. And that's the work that we are doing, and very much trying to push it through the youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ofa. And I know that there's probably a whole lot more work, innovative ways that Tonga Met Service and also the youth of Tonga, as well as other countries, implementing to make sure that we continue to raise or increase resilience within our communities. I have two prong question. One, first one, Tangaloa, there's, I know you work for SPRIP, but you are also from Niue, and you are aware of a lot of the activities that Niue is also implementing with the women and the youth, raising resilience. So that's the first one, if you can share some of the experience around their work and how they're going about in combining both traditional knowledge and innovative ways. And the second one is around sustainability. When we talk about innovation, often we also look, we're always looking for solutions, but sustainability continues to be a challenge for us in the Pacific. If you can also speak to that as to what role SPRIP is looking at when it comes to sustainability of all these activities in the Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you, Sina. You know, I was sitting up here and listening to Salesa on my left and off on my right, and I thought, you know, I think we need to, in this room, give a bit of context to us as Pacific people. There have been several tests done on Pacific people's DNA, which has been traced, and also the migration pathways have been traced right back to Asia, as well as South America. So to understand Pacific people is to understand that they navigated by the stars to get to the Pacific Ocean, where they lived in most difficult of environments in the small countries, but they are hardy people. And so they developed traditional understanding the trees, the plants, the ocean, honed in on that ability to connect with nature, so that they have an ability that is transcended through generations, being passed through generations, where even we understand the signs that nature gives us. And so the Pacific didn't just arrive here today to talk about our traditional knowledge. It is based on the lives, the generational information that has been handed down. We as Pacific people, identify ourselves as strong traditional communities that utilize traditional knowledge. So when people ask me, what is the place of traditional knowledge in a scientific time? And for Pacific people, I always say our knowledge, our traditional practices, they are associated with biodiversity, they're associated with reading the weather. What those things do is it validates our knowledge as traditional people against the science. So what the science is telling us now, our people have already read and see and continue to do so today. On Sina's question, how do we transition the technology and make sure that it's sustainable? Countries like Tonga and Vanuatu, who have been fortunate enough to trial this technology, and it really depends on the champion who's sourcing the technology. And we have a director here in Ofa and also in Vanuatu have a project that have that ability to articulate what those needs are and a vision to see what the app could be to hone in on these skills. So for us, you know, the sustainability is we want to replicate that success out to all of the different countries in the Pacific. The sustainability will depend on the buy-in from communities to keep that information going. The sustainability will also transition into our program as long as there is a SPREP, as long as there is a Pacific Climate Change Center, there is a home for this information where it will be archived and stored, and then we hope down the line we can build on and make it better as we evolve with times. Now, what is SPREP's role and how do we see ourselves? We see ourselves as enablers. Where there is a need in a country that they tell us, if we aren't able to help or we don't have the funding to help, we mostly don't have the funding to help, we will look for partnerships to ensure that whatever is required is able to be dispatched to the countries, and then we depend on the countries to roll it out and to share with us what works and what doesn't work. So that's, I hope, answers those two questions. But I want to leave one last thought for you. In the Pacific, and because you asked about my country, Sina, because the Pacific Islands are quite small, but in some of our countries there's hundreds of dialects being spoken. In the country that I come from, the way I see it, the most powerful people in society are the elders and the youth. And why that is because in the middle, where you have all the leaders and the bureaucrats, they are somebody's child. Yeah, the elders. And then in turn, they are somebody's parent. So between those two power bases, when they come together, by and large, things move in their favor in my country, because there is the connection in the middle that people may perceive as holding power, but not really. And they will do what the young people are passionate about, but also in respect of their elders knowing better. So even though we still practice our traditional knowledge, the Pacific also has come of age to embrace the science and utilize the science to enable us to plan our sector investments better for improved development of our countries to ensure that it's sustainable. Thank you, Sina.
Thank you, Tangalo, for that. Conscious of the time, so I'll hand over the, perhaps if there's anyone in the audience who has a question, if you want to. So the question is, how do you deal with different dialects? I'll hand over to Salisa to answer that question.
Thank you for that question. We are a country of 300,000 people, and we speak almost 100 languages. And so what you mentioned is really correct. It is quite a challenge in terms of trying to have a national program to translate science to local languages. Every language have their own ways of describing every event, every science. And as we know, one scientific word such as climate change takes half a page to explain, to describe it in a local context. So there are challenges. But when it comes to events such as El Nino, La Nina, that very significant for us, there are traditional, in every language, there are traditional explanation. They would have traditional words for it. It's just going through to try and collect all of them. What we've done in Vanuatu in terms of indicators, what would indicate a cyclone season, or a rainy season, or a drought? What we've done over the years is try to collect indicators that are common from north to south. So we've come up with 10 indicators that are common, and based on that, we have youth and elders in the communities that are monitoring those to ensure that it tells what they are supposed to indicate. So when we say there is a cyclone coming, or the cyclone, we estimate the number of cyclones for a particular season. All these people from north to south, and we know it's hotter in the north and colder as you go south in our part of the world. They all monitor these indicators to see if they are telling the same thing. Because with climate change, we know these indicators are also changing, and it's very important that this message is also communicated across. We have a common language that is used throughout the islands, which we use to communicate. It's kind of in between English, French, and some native languages all infused, which is used for communication. But otherwise, we have about 100 languages that we speak.
Also, just to add on, so part of the work that we also do is work alongside the countries to develop glossaries, common terminologies. One of the challenges with Met Services is translating scientific terms to local language, and that again is even more difficult even with one language. For example, in Samoa, where I come from, we have a spoken language, and then there is also a slightly different one when you write. So trying to translate from English and even scientific words, it's very difficult, especially in our context. Some of these scientific words do not exist in our language. So these are some of the challenges, but what we do is co-produce some of the material, some of the pictures, some of the cartoons. These are some of the communication tools that we are working together with our communities to make sure that information is well understood. Would you like to add something, Ofa?
Thank you, Sina. Yeah, it's the same in my country. We have just one language, but the indicators are different from every single island. So what we've done is we've collected most of this traditional knowledge, almost done now, trying to when things like tropical cyclones and severe weather events happen, we try to look at the context where this thing is happening. So we use the language of that island or that island region. Yeah? When we use directions like east, west, north, and south, it's not meaningful to many of these communities until you say to them, oh, it's the name of that side of the island of a particular island or island group, then it's meaningful to them. But I wanted to also add where we're moving in terms of weather forecasting now is impact-based forecasts. And we have to do risk assessments to a lot of these communities. This is very expensive. It's a very expensive exercise. Either you go and put in a piece of $1 million equipment in the ocean to measure the waves, but in traditional knowledge, these people have been living here for over 3,000 years. They can tell you that this part of the island, the waves are like this when the wind is like this. And it's something that we are using now, so the traditional knowledge can guide our work in impact-based forecasting. We can start now. We don't need to wait to get the instruments in the ground before we are able to. But yeah, that's where we are in terms of our work.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm conscious of the time, so we'll bring our session to an end. Thank you so much for joining us, and if you do have questions, please join us at the back. We're happy to provide more answers and have a meaningful discussion and engagement at the back after this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.